life.
That's what they say, right?
Yay! I'm safe.
Okay, so from my car to your car, let's get started.
Let's get started. Let's talk about homeschooling.
Yeah, let's
Um,
do this.
okay. So, hi. So you're Rivkie Goldstein and you're homeschooling Brooklyn. Do you want
hmm
to start introducing yourself?
Yeah, I've been homeschooling. This is our second year, and homeschooling 7 children.
Mhm.
I'm also a parent educator and coach, and it's been something that I always wanted to do. I always loved the idea of homeschooling. And I'm so grateful that 2 years ago, circumstances were such that I finally realized that I can do what I want to do, that I can do what I always wanted to do. So I'm sure we'll talk more about it throughout the live, but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And
And how about you? I
um,
mean, you started home. I mean, tell us about yourself.
so I'm Sarah Benamou, and we always basically homeschooled. My son was only in school for a few weeks, and then I started homeschooling for the past, let's say, 5 years. And I have 4 kids, and they all, the first one is almost 7, and I have a 5 and a 3 and a 2, and I homeschool all of them at the same time. And this year we're doing something really exceptional. We're traveling in an RV across Florida, which is really fun, and it makes total sense with our life and learning hands-on,
Yeah.
So that's my story.
I love it. It's on my bucket list.
Yeah,
One day.
definitely. Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
The kids love it. They're so happy. And they meet new
Uh,
friends and they get to socialize a ton and or introduce themselves and meet new people, see new places. They've been learning so much and their vocabulary expanded like crazy since we moved to the RV. So that's the sum up.
awesome. I
Yeah.
feel like that's such a good place to start if you want. One of the first, well, you know what? Actually, before we go there, I just want to like preface with this reassurance again for everyone who's listening to this now and later, um, that the intention of us having this live is not to sit here and tell everyone what they should do, that everyone has to homeschool or should homeschool. But the intention here is that if it's something that you're interested in, something you feel drawn to, you wish you could, we're here to start to like open up the possibilities for you to show how it can be done if you want to. Do you
Exactly.
want to add to that?
Yeah. No, I mean, it was
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
It
it's
was
fine.
perfect. It was perfect. Yeah, we're not here to convince anyone to homeschool, but if you have anything, people homeschool for many different reasons. Sometimes it's just not a good match, it's not a good fit, or some emotional needs or physical needs need to be supported in a special way, and the school cannot, help with that. So people decide to homeschool. Sometimes it's for positive things too, like they really have a child who's very good at certain sports or whatever, so they want to focus more on that and spend more time doing practicing the sport. So they start homeschooling. It doesn't have to be for something negative too. So if that's you, then welcome to the live and enjoy the discussions.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, you know,
Did you get any questions?
yeah, I did get some questions, but I just wanted, like, I'm looking at the notes that, like you and I were like
Yeah,
talking about yesterday, and you wanted to share something about your role as a homeschooler, because one of the first there's several like prevalent fears that people have around homeschooling, and maybe we'll be able to touch on some of them. And one of them is like, well, I'm not a teacher. How can I teach my child if I'm not a teacher? So do you wanna speak to that?
yeah, sure. So, yeah, we're not teachers. Homeschool parents are, we're here to educate. So homeschooling is one way to educate. School is one way to educate. There's many different ways. So we're not as educators, we're not teachers. A teacher gives a lesson and the children learn it and practice at home or in school, whatever. So we don't do that as homeschool parents. We're here to guide them and support our children. So we follow their interests and we follow their learning style. And then what we do is prepare an environment that's rich enough for them to wonder and to ask questions and to want to discover more things. And so I'm not a teacher. I never taught in my life. And it was like, actually I did one time, but it was economics in high school, just to replace a teacher. But it was not what I was doing. This is not what I do. It's not my job, whatever. So I decided to homeschool, and now I'm here with my children and they are asking questions and they're interested in things. So I prepare the environment for them to be fully supported and to support their curiosity. So anyone can homeschool. If you just have a few things that I want to talk about later, if you have just those few things, the first one obviously is going to be willpower, that you have the desire to educate your children and to also learn along with them, then you're all set. That's
Yep.
all you need. Then you start Googling and researching and your mind opens up and like, oh my God, my kid wants to know about giraffes this week. I need, and then you start supporting it and you can find a ton of support online. So yeah, we're just guiding and supporting our children. We're not here to teach them a lesson as an authority and them under. We work together and we learn together.
I love that. Like, I see it almost like as we're a facilitator, and our children don't need necessarily teachers for everything. They are their own teacher, and we learn beside them. We learn alongside them. I was also a teacher for a very short time, and actually I hated it. I did not like it. And the learning that happens in the homeschool setting is just a completely different experience than what's happening in a school setting, and you don't need that kind of teaching experience. If ever there was a time in history where homeschooling is like easy, it's now. Like, the amount of resources that are available online and in so many other forms, like, there never was such a thing. So for sure, like, just secular studies, Judaic studies, like, everything is out there. There's so many resources.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you don't have to be a professional teacher of any kind in order to.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually spoke to a bunch of teachers that decided to homeschool their own children, not to become homeschool teachers, but to homeschool their own children. And they said that it was very hard for them in the beginning to start homeschooling their children. No, one second, I'm going to rephrase. Starting homeschooling for them was way harder than what I was describing, because they had to move away and de-school from all those old paradigms that they had in themselves. So it actually slowed them down to start and start learning and homeschooling properly. So they were saying that in school, it's more like using fear tactics or more manipulative, not like a little mitzvah notes or whatever. So it's more manipulative and try to make a lot of competition and very judgmental environment. And when they came home, they said, no, I just want to love and connect with my child. So how do I do that? And it took way more time for them to get in the homeschooling phase of homeschooling after deschooling because of that. So did you feel that too?
Yeah, well, so for me, I feel like I was always drawn to this like style of learning all along, and it wasn't so much for me, but even still there are times where I get carried away with the school mindset. The way I see deschooling, the idea of deschooling is the idea of, let me imagine as if the concept of school never existed. And how would I educate my child if school never existed in this planet? Like, how would I give over what I want them to know for life, or how would I support their interests? And if I could just take school out of my psyche for a little bit and take the ideas of a school. So anyways, I think also it's important to mention that there is a big distinction if you are a family who's starting homeschooling from the time a child is young and they never really had any negative school experiences, versus a family who started later. And if children had negative school experiences, depending on how many years they were in the school system, they're also going to need time to like just recover and relax and just have fun with them. And they're still learning when they're having fun. Learning is always happening, you
Yeah.
know? So not to worry, but they will need time to just relax and take it easy. And I mean, there is a lot of trauma that can be associated with school experiences, and our kids need to recover from that. So
Yeah. I remember
just
when
know
I
that it's
started,
normal.
I was full of fear. So it wasn't my child. He was only for a few weeks, so he didn't need to de-school or anything. He's like, what happened,
Yeah.
you know? He was 3 years old when I started really homeschooling and getting into it. But I had so many fears. I was like, oh, what about the other kids? So I would ask my friends, what are they learning now? What are they learning? Is my child still up to speed? And
Yeah.
so that was my de-schooling, like getting over facing my fears and getting over them and just learning the truth about how children actually learn, and
Yeah.
the fact that they learn anywhere, like you said, and anytime and all the time. This it just did it for me. It was so much
Yeah.
clearer, you know, and I relaxed and I was able to, like, that was the end of my detoxing. Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful experiences to watch kids learn in an authentic way. I almost can't put it into words. It's like emotional almost to see kids like loving to learn and discovering things and getting excited and fascinated. And it's just, I feel like it's just such a pure expression of their soul. And for most kids, they as they get older and they have more and more negative experiences around learning, that kind of goes dormant for a while, and is really tragic. So being able to like rediscover a love for learning and watching our kids have that is just blissful. It's just beautiful.
Right. Yep, I agree. I felt the same.
Yeah. You know, at least I feel like there was something you said before that, more of my concern before I started homeschooling was I just felt like, oh, it's so taboo. Like it's like so not acceptable. I don't know anyone who does it. And specifically a big fear that we'll touch upon also that a lot of people have. And this was one of the questions that came in. For me, the fear about kids not having social connections, and the fear that there is a narrative out there that children who are homeschooled are socially awkward or things like that, which I know that's not true. I know because I've interacted with some homeschooling families at this point. I see my children, I see how they interact. So it's a narrative, but until I worked through that, that was like a taboo to me. Like, oh, well, I can't, because then. So I know that you told me you were talking about this with someone, I think, and I'd love to hear what you. I think you mentioned this, that someone said something about the social aspect.
Yeah. They I'll post it on Instagram. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. I
Maybe.
said some kids are just shy. Some kids are
Yeah.
super social, and that it's not a homeschooling, it's the nature of the child. Like I
Yeah.
have four, Lena, and two of them are super comfortable talking to strangers and giving high fives and just telling them the whole life story, while the other ones would just, get close to my skirt and just stay there and until they feel comfortable and safe. It's a nature. It doesn't mean that they can make friends. They make friends all day. And I've seen ton of kids that go to school and that are super shy and they go to the corner of the classroom, and so that people blame it on homeschooling, but it has nothing to do with it. Now I don't like. I know where it's coming from, like it used to be. School was invented 150 years ago, right? After that, everyone went to school, like literally everyone. So 30, 40 years ago, there was no social media, and people who homeschooled were like the cray cray. Like, why would you do that? Everyone, they didn't have the support that we have, all the books that we have
Right.
nowadays, and all the educators that spoke up and wrote books about it. So they decided to homeschool, so they had to do everything from scratch. Now you can find any curriculum you want in a like this,
Yeah.
right? Anything you need. But before, they really had to work hard and they were very alone. So it makes sense
Mm.
that those kids learned in a very different way, in a different setting, and they were interacting more with adults than children because the rest of the kids were in school, right?
Yeah.
So, like, this is where it's coming from. But nowadays, like, I'm in a campground now. There's maybe, I don't know, maybe 40 kids that meet up at lunchtime at the playground. There's a ton of kids. My kids, right away, they connect together. Some of them don't even speak English, and they
Wow.
play like there's no walls at all. nothing is stopping them. So
Exactly.
no, all those kids are super social. Like we have friends everywhere, and now we have co-ops, and we have homeschool groups that you can create together, and there's a ton of opportunity to connect with other children.
Yeah, and then so like yeah, it's a narrative. It's just something that's said perhaps because maybe people are afraid, and I'm afraid to try something that's a little different, and that's understandable. But to recognize that it's likely that the child who's struggling socially and happens to be homeschooled probably would have been a child who was struggling socially if they were in school as well. Like it doesn't have to
Yes,
do with the schooling choice for the most part. Yeah, yeah,
100%. And
totally.
even more so if he's homeschooled and he had this shyness and he's more, like he has like the social problems, then a parent who actually cares and love their children so much, then we can be here to support that and say, whenever you're ready,
Yeah,
this is what you could say. This is,
yeah,
we can take the time because we have all day
yeah,
to be here with our children and connect with them. I don't know how many times I told my child, like, you don't have to. You don't have to say hi, but if you want to, this is what you could do. You can give a high five, you can give a fist pump, like supporting and helping get them being more social, So I feel like it's actually
yeah.
great for the kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in full agreement. I totally agree with that. Um, some of the other, you know, there are so many other concerns, and the truth of the matter is, I feel like there's this one principle that like underlies everything, that there are so many concerns we can have, and there are answers for all of them. There are solutions. There are ways to address them, and I feel like if for someone who wants to do this, and this is the lifestyle you want. It's a lifestyle, by the way. I tell people it's not a schooling choice. This is a lifestyle. It permeates everything that we do. It's how we think. It's how we raise our children. Like you said, I think we said this yesterday when we were talking.
A life
It's
adjustment.
so like in line with a gentle, respectful, conscious approach to parenting. So it's just all intertwined. But ultimately, like if it's something you want, and this applies to everything in life, if there's something you want, that commitment to pursuing your dream for your family will carry you through the different challenges that come up. And there will be challenges. Of course, there are going to be things that we need to figure out. When I went into this, I remember clearly saying to my husband, I said, this is going to take us time to figure it out. It's going to take us possibly, possibly, I gave myself like a long, long time to really just mess up. And by the way, like, it could take longer, I just gave myself a lot of permission, a lot of leeway to just be figuring it out. And for me, it's the commitment to doing this for my family, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
So I think that underpins like everything.
Yeah. You need to have your whys in your head. Why am I doing
Yeah.
this? And like after the burning desire to educate your child, and you have your whys in your head, and when you have hard days, just remember your whys and you're good to go. Even if you're having a
Yeah.
hard day, tomorrow's a new day, and you continue your life.
Yeah,
So
and you keep figuring it out and you try new things, and yeah, it slowly but surely you figure it out.
yeah,
Another big concern that I know that people have, and that's been a struggle for me, and I'm still figuring it out, is like, how do you have time for yourself and taking care of other things? So on the one hand, like, I have to say that on the one hand, yes, it's been difficult, and I'm working on it. I'm working on figuring out ways to have more time for myself and take better care of myself. But at the same time, I have to tell you that I feel so much freer than when my kids were in school. So much freer. We do not have to be up and dressed, hearing the bus honking outside the house, my heart pounding that we're going to miss it. I do not have this like looming afternoon, like, when do I need to be ready for the kids to come home? Like, there's none of that. Our day is just open. There's this openness in our day. And not to mention, there isn't any of the evening stress of homework, or I don't have a uniform tomorrow, or I have to bring in this form, or none of
uh,
it. So in a sense, like, yeah, I still have to learn to carve out time for myself, but at the same time, my days have freed up in such a beautiful way.
right.
So I just wanted to point that out. How about for yourself? How do you make time for yourself?
Uh, I just want to say whatever you said is just amazing. What you said is, I so agree with that. And when I was like those a few weeks in school and just dealing with someone else, technically a stranger, who is telling me and reporting on my child that I don't know what happened that day. Like I can't get all the answers from my child. It was just such a huge stress that I always say like it doesn't even equal all the stress that I'm going through now, because when I have hectic days or whatever, it's my children, and at the end of the day, I still love them. I'm still very connected, and it's just one day and one little, like a little few minutes, few hours, or few, you know, moments with my children that is very hectic, but it's not a stranger telling me my child has issues. It's not, like this is so stressful. Like, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe not. Your whole instinct is, but now when I'm with my kids, I see what's wrong. I know what's up. I know I'm hungry. I know I'm this. I know I'm that. I know he's having a hard time. And how can I support it? Like, this is just magic for me. And for self-care, so I believe that everyone has a different definition of self-care. Some people need more, some people need less. But I do like to always remember that for me, I think a general definition should be something that nourishes your body, your mind, and your soul. So I love to have those three. And if it's eating, if it's doing some yoga, if it's just exercising, or just reconnecting with yourself, just walking in in an empty space and just keep on, or even driving with music, loud music, and just whatever works for you that can nourish your soul. This is what you should be doing to do self-care. So thank God I have a ton of support from my husband, and he's here to help me whenever I need it. Like if I need my time alone or whatever. I have a pretty like early bedtime too, so I have all my nights for myself. But thank you. But sorry, it's funny to one of the comments. But yeah, if I have mind, body, and soul all checked out, then I'm good to go. And I feel like it should be like a definition for everyone, and then you put whatever that means for you. For some people, it's driving. Some people, it's walking. Some people, it's being with their kids. Some people really connect and feel so much joy just staring at their kids playing, and you just take a moment from being over them and just observing them, just give them so much like spiritual, like feed. And that works for them,
Yeah.
So that's
You know,
that's my thing.
yeah, like you made me think of something else when people sometimes, when I share that I homeschool, and some people say, oh my goodness, that's so hard. And what I really realized was there's two different kinds of hard in this world. Of course, there's more than two, but I'm saying for the sake of this conversation, there's the hard of, yes, my children are around all the time and I'm responsible for providing and facilitating their education and all of that. And there's a different kind of hard. And for me, the other kind of hard was much more painful. When my kids were in a school system and it just really wasn't working out for them, and I was becoming less and less comfortable with whatever was going on, sending my children there every single day when they were unhappy and I was unhappy, that's a different kind of hard, and that's a much more painful kind of hard for me. And so, when I chose that I'm not going to be having to, I released so much difficulty in my life when we chose this lifestyle. So yes, now it's just more the practical side of, finding time for myself. But there's this deep sense of joy and fulfillment and peace. And maybe people don't realize how powerful that is. Like, that is a form of self-care. Like you were saying, watching your children play and like knowing that you're providing them with such a beautiful experience, that is also a form of self-care, I think.
Yeah, you get to be with them. You don't have to be with them. You get to. And that's a mindset shift that for me was like, boom, in my head. Like, oh my God, I'm with my kids and I'm so lucky,
Yeah.
I know everyone loves the children, but there's a different, I don't know. When you see them discovering something or figuring something out by themselves, and you see like their eyes, like sparkling and like, aha, like I got it, like I want to be here witnessing this,
And one other thing that also makes it, in my experience, a lot easier was, everyone talks about the moods that kids come home from school, that most kids come home from school in terrible moods. And I remember that distinctly, this very bad moods, and it's like very normal across the board that kids come home and it's just like that's gone, like it's gone. Like, so of course then the kids are around each other more, maybe there's a little bit more fighting between siblings and things like that, but at the same time a lot of the stress that my kids were experiencing is gone. So it's not like shifting to homeschooling is like taking on this huge burden. We have to recognize that we're also releasing a lot. We're releasing tremendous burdens that I think many of us don't even realize we're carrying.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Wow. Yeah, so true. And bedtime, sometimes it's horrible, because they've been suppressing all those emotions to be able to fit in a class. So when they come home, they're exploding and they have so much energy, and bedtime is hard. And then the next day, boom, they have to go back to school at the same time, catch the bus and this and that. That's very difficult too. It's true.
You just reminded me of one more thing, and I don't know how much more time you have, but I remember that as I was, shifting into kinder parenting, I started to wonder, like, as I was learning more about the importance of spending time with our children and connecting with them, but my kids were still in school, I was like, when is this supposed to happen? When? They come home from school, and then the whole evening is spent preparing them for the next day of school. The morning is spent rushing them out the door to school again. So in a way, school has become this dominating entity in our lives. And where is the time for parents to connect with their children, even if they're in school? That being said, if someone's child does need to be in school now, I believe that it's still possible to take ideas from a homeschooling mindset and still bring it into your schooling life, which means like that, easing up on the pressure of our own child for tests or homework or their grades, and just we can bring some of it in, even if our child can't be homeschooled right now, or it's just not for our family.
Yeah.
We can still bring in some of the ideals and like lighten up and things like that.
I met a mom one day, just to a little story to support what you just said. I met a mom one day and I spoke to her about homeschooling. She said, yeah, it's great. I would do it 100%, but I do things differently. So I said, how do you do things differently when your kids are in school? And she said, every time she has an issue and the school calls her, she goes to the office and she says, was my child disrespectful to you? Yes or no? And then the teacher says yes or no. And if he was, then she will come home and tell him, like, whatever, you were disrespectful, this and that. If it's a no, then leave me alone. I know my child is learning what he's supposed to be learning. If he wasn't disrespectful to you, please do not call me. And I found it so beautiful. Like, she basically put a homeschool value into the schooling. And I think that was amazing. I was mind blown. Yeah. Because basically what we want is our children to be good human beings. Do we really care if they learn all those biology facts if they don't care about it? Or another child who doesn't care about history? Like, do we actually care that they learn all the dates and all the maps and everything? Don't you think that the day they will need it, they will be able to learn it because you trust them and they know their brain is developed enough to learn anything they want? I know that about my child. So I don't care. If he was disrespectful, I will talk to him. If he wasn't, everything's fine. Exactly. Don't talk to him about his grades. I know what he's learning, what he's not learning, Yeah. And I found it so beautiful. I wanted to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. I love it. I'm wondering if there was anything else. There was a question about, like, what if I can't do it right? What if I can't do it perfectly? And so obviously it's like with everything else, even with parenting, we're not meant to be perfect. Our children don't need us to be perfect. It's just that simple. Like, it's with homeschooling, with parenting, with life, with everything.
I feel like there's a little bit more to it, is that the imperfect is a learning opportunity too. It's a good thing. Yeah. When we mess up and we correct ourselves, or when we teach our children by modeling, letting go, or moving on, getting back to it later when you get better at it, when you're in a better state, or when you learned more about it. Like, I have so many books and my children ask me, like, what are you reading? I'm like, I'm learning how to be a good mommy. He's like, but you are a good mommy. I said, I want to be better. And just the little words here and there it's just amazing. It's like, it's okay to mess up, and it's actually a good thing when you see it as a learning opportunity and what's it called? Like a teachable moment. then
Mm-hmm.
you're good to go. It's okay to be imperfect as long as you're still learning, and this is what you're modeling. As long as you're still getting better, then go for it. Mess up. It's
Yeah.
fine. That's how we
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's exactly, in a way, I feel like that's a great way to actually, if somebody really is seriously interested in homeschooling, when I was first feeling like I'm really seriously drawn to this and I'm really wanting to do it, but I just felt like I didn't know enough about it. I literally just started learning about it. I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I started following accounts on Instagram that were like homeschooling accounts that felt right for me. There are all types. There may be types of homeschooling accounts that don't feel right. There may be homeschooling accounts that look very overwhelming and perfectionistic. I don't follow those. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized how doable it is. And I feel like just exposing ourselves to the literature, to the people who are doing it, to the mindsets, as we learn more about it, we start to realize how doable it is,
Yeah.
So I think that's a really helpful idea for anybody who's interested but feels hesitant. Just for now, just like immerse yourself in it, like learning about it.
Yep, 100%. People ask me, I'm not creative. I'm like, I was not creative. I cannot do arts and craft. I can't even write my name 2 times the same way. Like, I just can't. I just suck at it. That's how it is. But what's creativity anyways? Like, what is it? The
Yeah.
more knowledge you have and the more you can put things together. So I
Yeah.
just read a ton of books. I followed a ton of Instagram accounts that also, like you,
Yeah.
like that were aligned with my values and not just unrelatable accounts. So I did that, and then I was like, she did that for Easter. I'm gonna do that for this. I'm gonna do, and you just are spoon-fed information, and you just put it together when it's your time to come up with something, So that's creativity. I'm not creative. I just have a lot of knowledge, and I put it together when I need.
And yeah, and back to what we're saying, that commitment. So you find when you're committed to something, you're going to find what you need for it. And another thing I would add is that giving ourselves a lot of patience to figure it out. And even if as we're going through it, like after a month or 2 or 3, like, oh my goodness, I'm hitting this obstacle, it's such a major obstacle. Now, to recognize that when our kids are in school, there are obstacles too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just considered the norm. So we assume that it's okay to have these problems in our child's schooling experience in a way. But in other words, like, just because I hit an obstacle in homeschooling doesn't mean that now I shouldn't be doing this. It's something that I'm going to work through, but it could be very easy to start to doubt ourselves because it's unconventional. So to be aware, like, it's normal to feel doubt, and we can still return to our trust in ourselves and our trust in, like, that commitment that I'm going to find solutions for this.
Yep.
I'm going to work through this. We're going to figure this out. And to remind ourselves that when my child was in school, there were problems also. It was far from perfect for most kids.
Right.
So yeah, those are some of the things. I know that when we're going to get off this call and we're like, oh my goodness, I should have said this, I should have said that. Like, there's so much more to say. This is the tip of the iceberg, but I don't know.
Oh my God, it's so cool.
Any questions that you wanted to answer or anything else you wanted to add for now?
Yeah, I got a few questions today. So the first one was about the laws. Like, is it legal, but like, what do we do to know what we're supposed to be doing if we want to homeschool? So I just want to say quickly, there's a website that has everything per state. So it's called hslda.com.
Yeah.
And you can just look up your state and see all the laws that you need. I had another question about the budget and somebody that was saying that they don't have enough space. So I just want to answer that quickly. For the budget, 100%, like, it's you decide how much you want to put into your homeschooling. Yeah. You can put millions of dollars into beautiful wooden toys and curriculums and spend a lot of money into that, but you don't have to, because you can teach with anything. Like, I've been using cardboards, Amazon boxes for the longest time, and this way I can travel more.
Yeah.
So I don't have space in my house, so I made a list of things that you don't need to homeschool and things that you actually do need to homeschool. So the first one is you don't need a classroom. You do not need to have a separate room in your house just for school. You don't need to. Actually, the dining room, the living room table is perfect, and it's more family-like, and it's just amazing. Magic happens on that table. You don't need separate desks like in school, and
Yeah.
some people want that, for children to work independently. But I don't think that you need it to homeschool. If you don't want to spend money on desk, you don't need that. Anywhere is good for the children.
Yeah.
Anywhere they're comfortable to learn properly, they can learn there. You don't need iPads. You don't need tablets. If you have interactive games or whatever you want to do and it works for you, then go for it. But you don't need it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not mandatory to homeschool. Like, oh, I want to start homeschooling. Let me buy iPads. No, you don't need it. You can just print papers. You can give them those little
Yeah.
workbooks and, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And you do not need an expensive curriculum. If
Yeah.
you are on a budget, you could definitely just buy little units here and there. You can just Google activity for preschoolers for this topic. My child likes this, whatever. It's going to be completely free. It's just the idea. You just make it happen with things that you have at home. I don't know how many straws we've used for educational purposes, and toothpicks and all this stuff. Like, you don't need to be it doesn't have to be expensive. What you do need
One second.
is
Can I
understanding.
chime in?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, when you were saying you don't need for curriculums, I found this amazing website with thousands of free curriculum, thousands. Freedomhomeschooling.org, I think. It's just easy. You could Google it and find it, and there's tons, and it's divided by topic, and then it tells you what grades it's for. It's fantastic. So that's for secular studies. And I just wanted to add that when you said it. It's free curriculum, and I mean, Google has like free everything.
Yeah. I love it. I always tell my friends that you can go to any website and they always have free printables. Just take it. If you're on a budget, take it. And then if you really love the way your child interacted with that special unit, then now you feel okay to invest in more printables from them and pay a little bit. And it's always like, it's not so expensive. It's $5-10, per unit. So that's great.
Yeah.
You could homeschool on a budget and you don't need like expensive stuff that looks like school. So what you do need is understanding why you're homeschooling, and you're going to need this for hard days. Like I said earlier, you need the willpower, you need the desire to educate, and you also need the desire to learn along with them, like I said earlier. And then for homeschool supplies, my first one I would say, like, you have to get would be a bookshelf, because for us, reading aloud is sacred. Like no one can take it away from me. We learned so much from reading. One of the biggest predictor of higher ACT scores is reading aloud when they were children. So I would just focus on that even during the deschooling period. Read to your children, and it's amazing for their brain, for starting conversations, for vocabulary, and for just snuggling together. It's just magical. So I would invest in books and bookshelves, some good quality art supplies. This I do recommend, and just posters around the house that, when they're just looking around, they have questions, and it's always like in on the wall, so they have questions. So posters is a good one, and it's very inexpensive. So this is what I think we do need, and you don't have to spend a ton of money on homeschooling,
Yeah.
It's going to cost them more in snacks, though. Should we tell them?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The most expensive part of homeschooling is the food.
Yeah. Shopping. But shopping is a learning opportunity. Look at us.
Yes, everything is. But you know what I heard you saying when you were saying all those things, that you don't need this and you don't need this. You could if you want, but you don't need it. Like that. And this is like the premise of everything about homeschooling. There's no wrong way. You can do this so many ways, and find the way that lights you up. Find the way that when you're interacting with your children, you're like alive and you're excited, reconnecting with our love of learning. I mean, I'm like, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
it's like the beauty of homeschooling is that you have to focus on relationship. Everything else is just that you see if it works for you or it doesn't,
Exactly.
Like, you have your own definition of a relationship, of love and connection, and there's no right way to do things, like you said.
Always keep the relationship like front and center, and then making sure that the learning is never compromising the relationship. That's like,
Exactly.
yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Wow. I love this.
So rich.
Want to add anything else? Do you want to add anything else? Is there any other questions that you
I
got?
don't know how much time we have because I have like three more questions that I got that I wanted. One of them I
Okay.
already basically answered. Somebody was stuck with a curriculum and said, I've spent so much money on it and I don't know what to do with it. So I
Mhm.
told them, I want to say that that's why I prefer to buy units instead of the whole curriculum because it's much cheaper
Yeah.
and you have time to see if you like this company or
Mhm.
not. And I just want to add that you could definitely call the provider and ask for like a partial refund. Sometimes they would agree because you didn't like it. You can also sell it back and at the same time because you can also buy a used one too that's much cheaper,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
So you can sell your unused curriculum and that's fine. It happens. People do it. Someone asked me how do I organize my days? Like how so this is also like a personal answer. It's like what works for me. There's no right or wrong way. Some people
Yeah.
have no bedtime. Some people have a very strict bedtime. Some people just have a routine. So this is us. We have
Yeah.
a routine. So uh, for me, I really feel like a routine builds character and it really helps the children feel safer. So I do like to have a routine, but you always have to stay flexible and keep an open mind because sometimes it's going to change. Sometimes my children are not they're not tired at all and there's a sunset happening. Like we're not going to sleep. We're going to go watch the sunset, you know? And even though I have a pretty organized routine, I do keep my mind open and flexible. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, so I just want to add one thing is that the challenge for homeschool parent is to balance between that routine and at the same time supporting everyone's needs,
Yeah.
right? So we have multiple ages and we have a baby that needs to sleep and somebody that needs to nap, and then we have older kids that are
Mhm.
not so tired. So how do you balance this out?
Okay.
This is going to be your challenge, and this is what we have to work on and see what works for you, what doesn't,
Exactly.
and how flexible you want to be. And just remember that everything's a teachable moment. Like even when you want to let go and just,
Yeah.
give up on your strict routine or whatever, then it's okay because your kids learn from that too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's
one of
wonderful.
the most important thing is do not fit too much in a day. Don't make
Yeah.
it back to back activity and play date and this and that and you're stressing out and do
Yeah.
put too much into the homeschooling because it's very overwhelming for the parents and for the children and they're just going to hate it. So we do
Mhm.
have very intense days, not hectic, just very intense. So we have a lot of things going on and the kids are on board with it. But again, because I'm flexible, if I see that something is too much, I would just stay home and
Yeah.
just cancel. And I do embrace slow days a lot. Like today was a slow
Yeah.
day and we just went shopping and did what we had to do
Yeah.
and we focus on living rather than
Yeah.
academics. So we learned so
I
much,
love
we
how you
learned
said
a
that.
lot. Yeah, this is
I love
like
that.
the secret for organization. So yes, do have a
Yeah.
routine, keep an open mind, embrace slow days, and don't overbook during the day. And yeah, be flexible and just focus on living together. That's gonna be my answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. So like I guess for me, like if for me to wrap up here and then if you want to like wrap up with anything, I just want to share that if you want this, it's doable and you can, you'll do it and you'll figure things out as you go and you'll give yourself tons of patience and grace and understanding as you mess up, and it's fine to mess up. I don't even want to use the word mess up. It's like not even messing up. It's just part of learning.
Mm-hmm.
And just yeah, just it's magnificent. That's all. That's all
Yeah,
I could say. Would you
very
like to
nice.
like wrap up with anything for yourself or
Yeah, what you said, it's amazing. And also like it goes together with our parenting journey. Like we have so much information coming our way nowadays. Like and I saw one time somebody used the expression ignorance is a choice nowadays because we have so much on a tip of our fingers. And it's our job to be mindful and to look for the right things. So when I started my parenting journey, I learned all about trusting your child and connecting and respecting the nature and the authentic self. And just to give encouragement to parents who do want to do that, is that homeschooling will give you all the tools you need and the time that you need and the space that you need to support that, and it makes so much sense with your values if respecting your child's authentic self is one of them, and yeah, go for it. The right
Great.
time
Oh,
is now.
I'm glad we were able to do this.
Amazing.
And yeah, if you know how to tag me and then I can put it on my page also, like after the video, then
Yeah,
I'd love
I
that.
hope I don't
Um,
mess this up. Like,
yeah, if
okay.
you can, like if it works, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
I'm gonna let you
Okay.
hang up so I can see what's going on. All right, bye everyone. Good night.
Bye. Good
Thank you so
night.
much for watching. Bye. Okay, what do I do now?